makes most women start a business? Is it passion, money, or freedom? Welcome to Female Founders, the podcast that takes you behind the scene with women who are founders and CEOs to help you start and scale a successful business of your own. I am your host, Nagelia de Ravin. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Female Founders. In this episode, we are going to have a conversation with Melanie Bell. She is the founder of Strategic Peace, works toward helping business-to-business companies create strategic, information-driven customer experiences that fuels exceptional revenue growth. Good morning, Melanie. You are a business development consultant and the founder of Strategic Peace, which helps companies scale up their marketing activities. I think that is like one of the greatest business model. I guess what I'm trying to say is that you have a great business model. But how did the idea of starting your own company come to you?
Sure. So my background has primarily been in marketing, and I worked for a company that would now be considered a MarTech company, but that word wasn't used back in the day. We were also had an agency component to what we did. So I was there for a few years. That's where I started learning about digital marketing. And then I went back to business school because I felt like I liked the marketing piece, but we were doing like one specific channel, and I wanted to understand my client's whole business, because I felt like I couldn't really do a great job on their marketing if I didn't have an understanding of their whole business. And through business school, then I got connected with the startup community. I'm based in Houston, Texas, so here in Houston, and worked at an accelerator and got to mentor a bunch of startups as they were going through our program. And after a few years of hanging out with entrepreneurs, I got a little bit of that bug. And it was an interesting time. So I started in 2014. I started my own company then, and there were just so many tools in that MarTech space that were opening up and affordable to startups or companies that were smaller that wanted to grow. And it allowed them to do marketing at a different scale than could have happened before, where you had to have a lot of people. And so I thought that was really exciting. And I had built a really solid network. And so that was just always like, okay, I think I want to go do what my friends are doing and start my own company, which is a little bit crazy, but yeah, that was how it got started.
Wow, that's awesome. So pretty much you see a gap, you saw that gap there, you're like, okay, well, since I have the experience, let me just fill up that gap. Let me try to help the people with what they're suffering with.
Exactly. And at the time it was that, and there were some people who were doing some marketing technology consulting. That was really where I started with that focus, was focusing on the tech stack. But they were working with really big brands, Coca-Cola and Gap and this kind of stuff. And not only was that just not my world, but it was like there's some commonalities in how you would think about technology, at any company, but there's some nuances when you're talking about either there isn't actually a marketing department and they're kind of faking one, or, maybe they've got one or two people. And so it looks really different. And so, yeah, I think nobody was doing it. I've seen it a little bit more recently. I think that has caught on, but at the time it didn't seem like many people were doing it.
I love that.
Yeah.
So your venture Strategic Peace help companies maximize revenue growth. Can you collaborate more on that, as well as the services that the company offers?
Sure. So when I started in 2014, it was under a different company. So it was Marketing Interface. It was just me. And 3 years ago, so end of 2019, my business partner, I didn't have one at the time, is now my husband. So we now work together. So we went from, he worked, he had his job and I'd ask his advice. He's worked with a lot of startups as well. He worked in corporate venture capital. So he's got a lot of expertise in this space. We had wanted to work together. And so 3 years ago we started, but he had gone from like day job. Then we started sharing an office, and then COVID happened. And then we were now
Perfect
around each other a
time.
lot. Yeah. And I had this marketing background I was bringing to the table, but his background, he was an engineer for a long time and then a venture capitalist, and then he ran companies. And so the expertise he brought to the table was much more on business strategy, corporate strategy, interacting with investors, fundraising. But he was a very marketing minded CEO. So he's really good at that messaging and content. And so he's able to bring that to the table. And then I work more on how is this actually going to get implemented and rolled out as a marketing plan, and, the processes and the tech behind it. We are partners with HubSpot. So it's, if people aren't familiar with that, it's all-in-one platform for a CRM and sales tools for marketing automation, and marketing management. And they now also have, other add-ons like customer service software for service teams. I started using HubSpot 10 years ago. So actually, like even a lot of the people that work at HubSpot now, and they're like, oh, I've been at HubSpot for a long time. Like I've been there for 4 or 5 years. And I'm like, no, I've been using you for 10. It's changed a lot, but that's the software program that we've decided to specialize on. Because at the start, I was like, I can implement any CRM except for Salesforce, because that one is just a behemoth and very nuanced. But it was like, yeah, any tool is fine, but for my own sanity, had to focus in on one of these platforms, because they've also, all of even MailChimp, it's like they've all grown in their complexity and work a little bit differently. So we've had to change our business focus as the software has changed.
So pretty much like, when you say you use HubSpot, do you also help your clients using that as well?
Mm-hmm.
Or it's just for your business?
No. So we will, for our clients will use it. And so we help, we do use it, but our clients, if they want to use that software, we help them get set up. So sometimes they're changing their software program from one to another, and that's a whole process. But we get them set up and train employees on their teams as well on how to do their jobs in the system.
And is that part of the services you offer, or that's the main focus of the company now?
No, that's like one of the things that we do. So we'll do everything from helping out with that kind of foundational company strategy of who are we, where are we wanting to go, who do we serve. Everything we do is really starts from there, and it's all about serving the customer. And so we do a lot of consulting for what's the business strategy, then what's the marketing strategy, then what's the marketing plan, then how do we actually implement it. And so sometimes that implementation includes HubSpot, sometimes not. We do have some clients where we've really purely done HubSpot, but that's kind of a rare project for us. We're much more on when we're doing the consulting work on that strategy development, then also around content inbound. Because that stuff, it's like those marketing tactics, they're elbow grease, but they don't cost a lot of money.
Sure.
So that tends to work well with the clients that we work with, because we only work with B2B companies, so companies that are selling to other businesses.
Right now, are you also focusing just on startup, or would you say from startup to medium and bigger companies?
Yeah, it's funny because I feel like people have different definitions for these terms. I was talking to someone I guess it was a few years ago now, and she was like, oh, I work with startups too. But the companies she's working at have like a few hundred employees. And I'm like, no. Like that's not a startup to me. So
That is startup.
Yeah, exactly. So it depends how you define it. I've kind of narrowed in and as an experiment, like what I've learned over the 8 years is when is a company too early to do marketing? I still think you can have brand and messaging, and there's a lot of marketing foundational stuff that you're never too early to do. But in terms of, okay, I want to grow our audience on social media, or I want to build an email list, I think that there is a point that's too early for companies to do that. And that you need to have figured out what it takes to get a sale. And not one sale, but several sales. Like, can it be a repeatable process? And at that point, that's when is a really good time to ramp up your marketing, because I've worked with companies that were earlier than that. And what ended up happening is as they went to market, they'd get market feedback on what they need to do differently. And so they would change their business model. And then all the stuff that we had, come up with for their marketing program, didn't apply to to how they were pivoting. And so it was like, and then it created a really weird dynamic, because we were still, expected to generate results, but essentially we were starting from scratch, but it didn't feel like that to the client. And so if a company is just launching, that's normally not a great fit. So we do work, most of our companies are a little bit farther along in that process. So the minimum is you've got, had some fundraising, and then you've gotten that repeatable, I know what it's going to take to get a sale. So I think kind of on the top end, our kind of biggest clients have maybe had 200 or 300 people. I think it's not so much as it a startup or a mature we've even worked with mature companies, but they've never really invested in marketing. And so a lot of times we're kind of the first people that are brought in when a company is doing marketing, and ready to scale it and generate more, whether that's market awareness or, more lead generation, that kind of thing. But we're frequently kind of early on in that process.
So it's kind of like pretty much you have that startup, they started early, they test the they only put the foot in the water, they kind of test it a little bit, so they know what's working and what's not working, but really they don't have anything in for marketing. So now they want to implementing everything, because now they have the products, they know the products works, they know the clients want the products, and now they want to bring marketing in to make sure that more sales are coming and they have everything in place. That's where you come in.
Exactly. They've got product market fit. They know that it's working. It's just like, okay, we know that this is working. How do we make this bigger? How do we scale that up? And then that's when we start working with them.
Yeah, but I think that it's a great way as well, because for me, when I started Warmail, if I brought you in, I probably will, because you probably will change everything with me for like 10 times. Mm-hmm. because in the first year, really, you don't really know what's going to happen. You don't really know how people are going to react to your services, to your products. You don't know. So I think what you are doing is awesome, because you're not letting people wasting their money on something that they pretty much about to change again.
Yeah. It took me a few times. I went through, it's funny, I don't know if you've had experienced this, but I feel like my clients, it's like, I'll go through these phases where everybody's focused on the same thing, or like everybody ends up asking this question I've never been asked before, but all of a sudden in 1 week, every single person is asking me about that. Or we'll all of a sudden end up with projects or, potential projects in a specific area that we've never had before. And I went through this phase where I was working with several founders that were getting ready to launch, or had just launched, or were doing a soft launch of the whole company, but they hadn't done that market validation yet. Like they just hadn't gotten there yet. And so it was like, well, we can validate that through marketing. You have to have money to do that, right? Like that doesn't come for free. And sometimes maybe that makes sense. Sometimes it doesn't. It depends on the resources and how fast you need to move, and who the people at the company are. So how are they from that particular industry and have a lot of experience? So they've got the connections, and they know, maybe they even have some deals lined up that, it's a little bit different then. But yeah, there's a lot of pivoting, and I feel like soul seeking early in a company's life where you're really figuring out who you are
Wow.
and how you want to show up. And it doesn't make sense to rush it. And so if you're investing in marketing, it just puts extra pressure on you to figure that out faster.
Very fast.
Yeah.
I would say unless you have the money and you don't mind that you probably will need to change this at least 2 or 3 times in the next year. And then you don't mind
Yeah.
that you're losing that money to figure it out the fastest way. But
Right.
I don't know. I don't think I will take that route. But again, if you have the money, I guess it's nothing.
Yeah, I don't think it's nothing. I mean, I do think that sometimes, I mean, I think it might help people validate faster. And so if it's like, well, I want to fail as fast as possible to figure this out as fast as possible, and you have the resources, then throw it at it. But sometimes it's not a money thing. Sometimes you really need the time, and that you can't rush that experience. Sometimes of figuring the stuff out. You need to let stuff germinate and soak, and then you kind of figure out where to
Yeah,
go
exactly.
after that. So yeah, money
I
can't
agree
help
with
with
you.
that.
That's for sure. I agree. You have held a senior marketing position in many different companies prior to starting your own business.
Mhm.
So, how do you leverage that experience in helping clients scale up their businesses?
So I think because I've had those positions, I have a lot of times our points of contact are a director or a VP or higher. And a lot of times we're working directly with the CEO of a company. And I think because I've had those positions, I mean, it kind of goes back to why I wanted to go back to business school, which is like marketing doesn't exist for marketing's sake. It's all about supporting the business goals. And I think from my experience, I'm able to and I say this a lot where I'm very business first and marketing second. So everything that marketing does is there to drive whatever business goal exists. And I think marketing has changed, where marketing used to be a really good field for people who weren't comfortable with numbers. It was like, oh, great, we can still be part of business, but we don't have to do the numbers thing. But I'm not intimidated by the numbers. I'm comfortable having a conversation with somebody who has a lot more experience than I do. And kind of holding my own in those conversations. Nope, I can tell you if you're messing it up. Which is not fun to do, but I much rather yes, all these ideas are great and we're going to go implement them. But sometimes, and because I've worked with now and mentored easily over 100 startups, I think I also have a very different perspective of I'm an outsider. I think sometimes people see things more clearly when they're an outsider. And so I feel like I've also had a lot of data where I can be like, no, I've seen people try what you're doing before. And, maybe we can short circuit it, or that's a really great idea. Keep going.
Right. So I guess that the experience that you have also with mentoring that mini startup, but also working with so many different companies, kind of give you like a better eyes when you can tell this is not going to work. This might work, but be ready for this to happen instead. So you kind of can tell what's going to happen most of the time.
Exactly. And I think, it's funny. I had never used this analogy before, and I'm going to use it twice this week. Kind of going back to my point before. So my stepson he's 16 and he's learning to drive. And it's really fun. And he's done his classroom stuff, and we're doing a lot of the practical test, practice. So he's actually behind the wheel of the car and driving and on roads. And it's like with driving, it's like you can learn in a classroom a lot of what you need to know about driving. But every time you get on the road, you're going to encounter something different. And I can't come up with the 80 different crazy things drivers are going to do around them that you have to react to. And I think sometimes in business, it's the same. It's like you can go to school or you can hear about it, you understand things in an abstract, but it's not until you're the one doing it that it starts to feel differently. And when I was starting my company back in 2014, I had done we did these big demo days with our startups, 800 people in the audience, and the founders would come do these 8-minute, like a TED Talk pitch. And I worked so closely with them on that. And so that was almost 25 companies that like spent weeks working with them on their pitch and how to deliver it. And the first time I had to tell someone what my company was, I just like all the words it was like turned into sand in my mouth. Like I felt so nervous and uncomfortable. And I was like, well, I'm not on a stage. And I think you have that other perspective after you've done some of this stuff where it's like, that empathy or that understanding, I think you just gain that through experience. So
I agree with that. So what would you say that separate you apart from your competitors? Because there's a lot of people doing what you are doing now.
Yeah.
So what set you apart from them?
So we are definitely not for everybody, and that's totally fine. I think the biggest things for us, so we have some industries that we really have specialized in. So we do a lot with energy, and that's oil and gas, but also clean energy. So we've had clients doing solar and different things like that. We've had clients that are fintech companies. We've had companies that overlap. So where energy and fintech are. And so that's a little bit different. I mean, like I think there are some companies, I'm based in Houston. So like there are other companies that work with, oil and gas companies or energy. There are people that do fintech, but it's this huge space of where finance and energy overlap that we have experience in, and there aren't a lot of people that have that niche experience. I think the other thing is that I think it goes back to just kind of our philosophy on things, which is it's business first and marketing second. And the fact that we're a marketing company and one of the partners is not a marketer by background, but very well versed in marketing, that's just a very different approach that we'll bring to our client.
And also to not remember the fact that to business, you have that business within you as well. So it's not just someone that went to school for marketing and hey, I'm going to start a marketing company, but you went to school for business, understanding the business world, how it's working. Yeah. So I think also that played a big role on it as well.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I mean, I think right now it's like people used to say, well, we're data driven. I mean, there are lots of data driven marketing organizations. So I think a lot of times too, with this kind of stuff, whether it's marketing or design, it's like, if you're trying to find someone, it's like, do you agree with their approach? Do you see eye to eye on that? And is the quality of their work really good? I think, I see that with design. People get a referral to a graphic designer and then they're not happy with the work. And it's like, well, but that's the work that they do. Like if you look at their portfolio, that's what they do and it's good. It's just not what you wanted, but don't hire them.
Exactly.
Everyone's just got their different style and approach, and it works for some people and not for others, and that's fine.
For others, yes. So with strategic peers, how does someone get in contact with you or even start working with you? What is the process to even start with something like that, to start working with you?
Sure. So they can go to our website at strategicpiece.com, and there's contact. That's probably the easiest way. I mean, there's a company page on LinkedIn as well, but the easiest way is probably the contact us form on the website. And then we will do we'll have some conversations and understand better where a company is at and what they're wanting to achieve through marketing to decide if we're the right partner or not. I mean, a lot of that, I feel like we really try to figure out if we think that we're the right group or not. So we end up referring a lot more work out to other people than we'll take on. because we'll only take on a project and a client if we think we can do a really awesome job. And we stay focused. So that's the other thing. Like I used to, when it was just me, it was like, I'd do B2B and B2C and education and all sorts of other stuff. And it's like, so I've kind of figured out what those criteria are. And so early on in that conversation process, it's figuring out, does the company meet those criteria? Because that means it signals to us that we could be a good fit for them. Yeah.
So now I'm curious to know, when I learn about your company and the name of the company, now I'm curious to know why did you pick that name?
Oh, so my husband came up with the name, and it's really about the fact that we're strategy first. And so sometimes we get calls and people are like, hey, I need you to would you guys do LinkedIn ads for me? Or would you build a website? And those aren't projects that we would do unless there's also the strategic component to it. And so that was where
That's
it came
why.
from. Yeah.
Interesting.
I let an engineer name my company.
But I like it. So now, there is an interesting story behind another company that you started, Leaders Who Fiction. Can you throw some light on us for that? What is it about?
Sure. So I am a very avid reader, and as I started working, read less and less, to the point where there were a few years, at least 1 or 2 years, where I think I read one book in a year, which is shocking, given how much I really enjoy reading. And I really made a concerted effort a few years ago to start reading more. And, it's like, if you're in front of the computer all day, at the end of the day, you're like, oh, I don't want to look at a book. I don't want to think about something. My eyes are tired. And then what I realized was it's kind of like anything else. Well, if at the end of the day I start picking up a book, sure, the first couple of days my eyes might be tired, but then they get used to it and it's fun. And I'd rather do that than watch TV and that kind of thing. So I started reading more, and I noticed that I started my interactions with clients changed. I felt more confident. I felt like my perspective was shifting, how I was thinking was changing a little bit. And so that was kind of an interesting thing that happened. And then as I started reading more, I was like, man, I really wish I had more people to talk to about these books, because I hang out with all these business people who aren't reading, many of whom love reading, but are tired at the end of the day, and then they don't end up reading. And so that was kind of the genesis of starting to think about it. And I was like, well, what if I started, it's, for lack of a better word, a book club. That's what it is right now. But a brand and around working with people who want to develop their leadership skills through reading fiction in particular, rather than reading business books. And it was they're kind of like a few germs. That was a really big one. I felt like a year or two after I finished business school, a friend of mine had recommended this science fiction book. And I don't read a lot of sci-fi. I picked this one up. And I remember thinking, I read it in a day, and I was like, oh my gosh, this book is so good. And I can't believe that we didn't read this in business school. This was this was better than in our leadership and HR classes and stuff. This would have been better to read than the business books they had us reading. And so I kind of put those pieces in place, and I started talking to people, and sure enough, I had a handful of people right away that were like, oh my gosh, yes, let me know when you want to start that. And so we started in January this year, and but that's been really fun. So like I said, for right now, for lack of a better word, it is a book club, and we meet once a month and talk about a book that we've, I pick the book for the month, and then we discuss it. So all online.
Can anyone join?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And right now it's free. So right now I'm just interested. At some point it'd be interesting to see. I don't know how to monetize it, but it's not there yet. And so right now it's free. I have a website, leaderswhofiction.com, and the meetings and the book selections are all on the website, and people can sign up there. It's on Zoom. So it doesn't matter where in the world you are. I realize the time zone thing might impact some people. But yeah, everyone is welcome to join that. So.
Wow. That's interesting. And I think that's something actually you can eventually monetize it, because at the end of the day, you're putting your time into it as well. So
Yeah, it'll get there. I just like right now, I just am interested in kind of spreading the word on it and seeing the interest and talking about it. And, if I get to the point where there's enough people doing it, then, and I can charge for it, then that would be awesome. But right now, like, that's okay. Again, it's like one of those where it's like, it's a process and it's a journey, and I want to build it, but I'm also happy for it to take its time and getting there.
to get there. Exactly. So
Yeah.
for October, which book are you guys reading?
So for October, we're reading a book called The Watermelon Voice, and which is like, sometimes I feel like I'll pick books where a lot of people will have heard about them, or the authors are really well known. And this one is not. So I don't think there's a chance that anyone will have read this. I read it a few years ago, so I picked it. It's historical fiction, and it's about it takes place during World War I, but it's about Iraq's role in it, because that was when they were trying to secure their independence from the Ottoman Empire. And so a lot of people who are in now Iraq ended up serving with the British military, because that was going to be their way to getting independence. And so it's a very interesting, like for me, it's just a really different perspective and
It is.
story. So yeah, so we have that, and then our one for November is Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler, which is dystopian and depressing and terrible, but oh my God, it is a brilliant, brilliant book. The protagonist, she's just brilliant. The narrator of it is awesome. And yeah, so I did check with our members. I was like, okay, I want to make sure that no one's going to like end up in a mental health crisis for us picking this book. But everyone was really excited about it. So
But
I
it is
try
an
to be,
interesting book.
yeah, and I try to be kind of sensitive and not pick books that are too long, because I know like we all have a lot going on, and so I don't want to be like, here's War and Peace, good luck, you've got a month to read that. And I try to make sure that we kind of keep a balance between male and female authors and different genres, so that we're mixing it up. And then our members who have participated have made book recommendations, and then I've picked them for certain months too. So yeah, it's been, that's always fun too when somebody else picks the book, because they'll pick something you've never read before, maybe you wouldn't pick up yourself. And
Exactly.
so yeah.
Well, what I can say, you have a lot going on. Not only you have that book club, you also have the other company. So, and you have a family. So you have a lot going on. So my next question is, how do you manage all of this without being burnt out?
So in full disclosure, I don't think I'm doing a great job of that at the moment. There is a lot going on. I think I'm just trying to embrace it. I think I don't know why my earphones never stay in. Can you hear me? You can
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. So I think I just try. I first of all acknowledge it's not going to look pretty right now, because I do want to do a lot of stuff. And I am getting up early. So I'm doing a 5 a.m. wake up, which I hope will only be for this year, but it's for personal stuff will change, where I don't think I will have to continue doing that after a year. And then it's like I'll plan my day in advance and just try to be as realistic as possible of like, I'm probably only going to get a couple of things done today. I'm not trying to go out and do 8 things. So sometimes it's one thing in a day. I have my clients, and then Leaders Who Fiction doesn't get attention every day, and just keep
You
trying
focus
to
on one.
stay focused on the priorities, and then keep adjusting, because I feel like a week by week, it looks different.
Yes.
At the
And I
moment.
think that's a
So
great way. That's a great way also to not being burned out, because if you're trying to do everything every single day, then that's a lot.
yeah, I think you know, I've sent some recent apologies to friends over text messages, because I feel like, I haven't, like, I feel like that's one thing that's ended up not being as active in my life as it was. I think everything's kind of got its season, and right now there's a lot I want to do work wise. Um, and I mean, I wish I was a better friend, but kind of things are going to ebb and flow, and it'll just keep shifting, and I'll just keep responding as I'm happy or not happy, or if I'm feeling burned out, then something's wrong and I need to try and adjust and change something, and let myself sleep in and not wake up at 5 a.m. every day, which I do as well.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly. So it's same as you. I'm up at 5 in the morning as well. And sometimes
Yeah.
I go to bed at 10, so I don't get as much sleep every day. But there's
Hmm.
time, it's like on Saturdays or Sundays, there's time I'm like, I am not waking up at 5 a.m.
Yes, exactly. I think the other thing that I've found is really important is I have time where I'm not doing anything. And it's just like, yep, I'm not gonna, I haven't seen somebody in a while, or I mean, I need to call this person. It's like, no, I'm just gonna sit on my couch and stare at the wall for a while. And that's fine.
Yes, it is, because the brain sometimes just need to, I don't know, blank, I would say. Just like
Yeah,
nothing, just doing
exactly.
nothing. That's require a lot of thinking.
Yeah, yeah. But it's not easy. And I had a friend who freaked out once. She had started a job, and they were opening a new location of this business, and it was really stressful. But it was all consuming, but it was like for 2 weeks. And I think 1 week into it, she emailed me and she's like, I feel like I have no work-life balance. And I'm like, okay, but that it's a temporary thing. So it's not easy, and you do what you can in those crunch periods, but those crunch periods are going to happen.
Hmm.
Just because you have 2 weeks of work-life balance doesn't mean overall in your life you don't have work-life balance. So I think it also sometimes it's like, yeah, can you look at things through a different lens or a different time horizon, and how do things look? And
Yeah.
um,
But I like the way you are doing it. I think that's avoid being burned out, and you're still doing everything you're supposed to be doing. And I'm pretty sure your friends will support you through it as well, because
oh yeah,
a business gotta keep going, and the business has to make money somehow. And unfortunately,
exactly.
the founder and the CEOs and the other one who just spend the time to make that happen.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's the business world. So what is the biggest challenge that you had to face as a woman business owner?
Um, so I actually, as a female business owner, I think, I mean, I could say, oh, imposter syndrome, but I've watched men deal with the exact same thing. Most of our clients are men. A lot of, just because, again, in energy and finance, like that just ends up being not everybody. And I've had some really great women that I've worked with, but just kind of on balance, they end up being a bit more male dominated in these spaces. Um, I feel like I've watched men struggle with some similar stuff that I would feel like, no, that's just apparently what entrepreneurs, or business people struggle with. But what I found is that the support that I wanted looked different than what men wanted as support. And so for me, as I met other female entrepreneurs and maybe found some other communities. And it was like, I wanted to hear that I wasn't alone, like that my problems weren't unique. And some reassurance, but it was more community focused and a lot more connection. And I think a lot of the men that I've seen as entrepreneurs, it's their response to it is more like, I want the strategy and a plan. So it's more of like, and again, I kind of, this is a bit broad brushy because not everyone fits in these buckets, but I thought that was kind of an interesting, I feel like one difference that I've noticed. And then I actually feel like I had way more challenges as a female employee than I did as a business owner, just in terms of like sexual harassment and all sorts of other fun stuff that happens to women in the workplace that happens for whatever reason a lot less to me now as a business owner than it did. I don't know if that's an age experience thing or I'm not putting up with crap anymore.
Exactly.
It's like, I'm not naive. I know when stuff's not right. But yeah.
So what would be your advice for female founders that are just starting out?
So I think that I remember this point in 2017. So at that point I had been in business a couple of years. I had tried hiring an employee that didn't work out. I was very financially stressed because of how that didn't work out. I had been digging myself out of a hole, and I ended up having the worst project of my career. Like, client was terrible. I was not it was a terrible project. And I think it's the only time where I've on a work day, I'm just going to go watch TV. I'm good on the discipline side of getting my butt in my seat and working. And I just remember all of a sudden, I just told myself, it was like, I don't have to have all of this figured out today. And that, for whatever reason, was I don't know where that came from, but that was exactly what I needed to think at that time. And it was this weight off my shoulders. I was like, no, I just need to know what's the next thing I'm going to do. I don't know how it's all going to work out, and that's totally fine. And I think having that pressure off of me was allowed me to do what I needed to do, and to keep going. So I think that's one of don't worry about it, what's going to happen. And I mean, I think it's nice to know where you'd like to be in 3 years, but at a certain point, if stuff's causing you a lot of pressure, then don't worry about it. It's okay. You don't have to be obsessive about it. So I think that, to me, is one thing I wish I had known earlier. And I think the other one is, owning your own business is an amazing experience, and everyone will do it's a roller coaster. And I'm that's what I was expecting getting into it. And I'm but I thought when people said it was a roller coaster, it's a roller coaster every few weeks. There are ups and downs. Man, it's every hour. I can hit these highs and lows.
Yes.
It's crazy. I'm sure you've experienced the same thing. And so it's this amazing thing. And if you really want to do it, then do it. And if you don't want to do it, it's fine. I feel there's a lot of people who are really they say they want to be entrepreneurs, but it's not as glamorous as it sounds. And so it can be a great option for a lot of people. I don't mean that to be discouraging. I want people to also know that it's okay if entrepreneurship isn't the right path for you. And this is an advice. This is one thing I'm struggling with. So I'm actually curious if anybody else has advice on this. So I've worked for myself for 8 years. And one thing that I feel I've been struggling with is, so if I were at a company, I would have been promoted or transferred departments or had special projects. And for 8 years, I've worked on my own, and I've had some successes, but I'm essentially doing the same job that I was 8 years ago. And so, I guess my other advice, or what I'm still trying to figure out, is thinking about how do you keep it interesting, and how do you keep building a skill set? How do you make stuff different as you are going through your entrepreneurial journey? Because you have to create that for yourself.
Wow, that is actually a great question.
Yeah.
I think a lot of entrepreneurs that's something we deal with. I think for me, one of the things that keeps me going is my purpose and the purpose why I started this in the first place. And second, I think is the people I'm surrounding myself with. I try to keep all the negative people aside. So not only like if you say something negative to me 3 times, that means it's a sign that you are a very negative person and you shouldn't be in my life. Doesn't mean that I'm not gonna talk to you, but I just don't keep you in my circle. You are the type of people when I'm talking to, I put in the back of my mind, whatever you're about to say to me probably going to hurt me somehow. And I have to listen to it in one ear and let it out in the other ear so it doesn't bugs me for the rest of my life. And I surrounded myself with a lot of positive people and people that's done what I've done and that I can call and reach out to and ask for advice. And when I feel like quitting, and I have a very my family, including my son, even if I feel like quitting for 1 second, my son will look at Mom, the company is not making money. You're sitting on the couch. Get back to work. That's easy as that. So he's been saying that to me since he was 3 years old. Mom, you're not making money. Why are you sitting on the couch? And that's because I taught him that if I'm not working, then we're not making money. So he will keep reminding me that all the time. And I think one of the things too, I get my family involved into it a lot. Even my son knows all of my employees, everyone that works in Warmail. Like he can tell to everyone, even the clients, he knows them all. Not because he met them, it's because he heard me talking about them. So he knows it all and he'll give me advice. Sometimes it's kind of funny, even the thing that I implement within the company are coming from my son. Like that's his advice to me. So it's surrounding yourself with the people that want to see you succeed. And when it's come to how do you keep growing and not sinking, and also like how do you you're not working for someone telling you all these things. You have to create them yourself, right? And I think that's something I plan, like for right now, I'm in a planning stage for 2023. So I started early, like I started by September, so that I have enough time to close the year, but also to plan the next year. So, so what is other people are doing? I don't like copy other people, but I like to see what they are doing.
Oh, yeah.
And how can I make the company better for the people I'm serving and the people that I'm working with? So I think it's one advice I would say is just surrounding yourself with positive people and great mentors and good people that you can just reach out to. Like, and also for me, it's continuing education, like reading. I read a lot, and I go to the library. So I don't like ebooks. So not only I buy the print books. So I have to have the book in my hands, sitting in the bed and reading it. That's just me. Or my husband is driving and I'm reading in the car. So that's just...
Oh, you can do that. I'm jealous. I get car sick.
Yeah. So I do that. So I think it's continual learning as well, because I do a lot, like for example, I read a lot of books that's for business and different type of things and things that I didn't know about. So maybe those can sometimes trigger new ideas and new solutions to your problems. So those are the things I do to keep myself going and keep on moving. But more importantly, I find myself, I am my best mentor. So I always remind myself that as well. I have to keep myself in a positive level all the time. So I am my best mentor. So in another word, what I'm trying to say is that I keep myself moving. Even if I don't have anyone around me, I teach myself how to stay in track and keep on moving forward, even when the people's trying to pull me down. So that is my way of doing it so far. That's how I've been surviving since 2016.
Nice. Yeah, that's good. That's good.
So I really want to hear what other people would like to say about your question. I think it's an interesting question. A lot of people are suffering from it as well. Anything else you'd like to share with us before I let you go today?
I don't think so. Just thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Melanie, for taking the time to have this conversation with me. Let me know your thoughts about this episode with Melanie. And to learn more about Melanie and Strategic Peace, visit www.strategicpeace.com. Thank you for listening to Female Founders Podcast. That's it for this week's episode. Be sure to follow us on your favorite podcast app or connect with us on womel.com so that you don't miss our next episode. See you next time. Bye for now.